this computer. Okay, it says recording. Hello. Okay, so hi everyone, and welcome again to my audiovisual channel. Today, I bring you episode number 4 of Conversations about Art, during which I try to find out the meaning and purpose of art and beauty through conversations with colleagues in different artistic fields. This time, I will have this conversation with Dan Thompson, who was my drawing teacher at the New York Academy of Art, and now I think we are more like colleagues. So, welcome, Dan, and thank you so very much for your time and for being here and to be willing to have this conversation with me. Why don't you tell us a little bit, tell the listeners about yourself and introduce yourself?
Oh, thank you, Gabriela. It's really great to be here. I appreciate being number 4. If only you'd put me in number 13 on the podcast roster. It's a great number. I love 13.
I agree.
I mean, we're friends. We've been friends for a long time. It's been wonderful to work with you. You are indeed a colleague, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you and support what you're doing, and love the fact that you are trying out so many different ways of teaching and manners of communicating with people. And it's just nice to be here on the call with you. My name is Dan Thompson. I am Dean of Fine Arts at Studio Incaminati in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I'm also the CFA faculty chair at the New York Academy of Art, where I've taught for 20 years and have enjoyed very much being a part of both communities for a long time, where I've had the pleasure of meeting people like Gabriela Handal and working with them and watching them develop with great pride. So yeah, that's a bit about me. Anything else you want to know about me?
Well, that's an excellent introduction. Yes. Well, um, you both paint and draw, as you have lovely examples behind you there. Um, what as somebody who does, I mean, I guess maybe I don't know if you consider yourself mainly a painter or a draftsman, but since you do both often, I wonder what things do you favor about each one versus um, what do you think drawing can do that painting can't do, and vice versa?
It's a very interesting question. I can remember when I was studying back in the academy, in my own experience, where they felt like separate things, almost like separate vocations, standalone, encapsulated topics. And one was, generally speaking, out of sync with the other. One was ahead of one was ahead of the other. And it was like, okay, my drawing is better than my painting. My painting now is better than my drawing. Why is that? And in that respect, I used to compare them to each other as almost like if you had a studio with two pieces that you are equally invested in, and they kind of compete with each other in a good way and contribute to a more, I don't know, holistic way of seeing one or the other, and that you wouldn't see independently.
Yeah.
But they have no longer been that way for a while. At some point, they converged. They became the same thing for me, and I don't feel like a part of my brain shuts down away from drawing when I'm painting anymore. I don't feel like being away from, let's say, color specifically when I'm drawing is in any way a detriment. They just feel like, really kind of precious spaces to me to inhabit whenever I can. And they take me to a place that is just as fulfilling if I'm doing one or the other, and feed each other. And they become a little bit more a part of an ongoing journey. And not to sound cliche, but the way that you craft every day or every week or every month, you kind of go project to project.
Yeah.
Your project is driven by this gasoline, which is your fascination for what you do. And in that sense, they're kind of organic. Like, you'll look back at the end of the year and you'll say, well, I did this painting and that drawing and this project and that one. And it all makes sense. But at the time, it's almost impulsive, because you want to, as I always say, you want to stay on the crest of the wave of life, in the highest part, where, the fulfillment is at a fever pitch, and just continue to move with great exuberance so that you can be, you can just experience the best of what life has to offer.
Okay. That is very interesting that they became, I mean, one almost the like the same activity in spite of the materials being different. Um, because I guess I as in the previous episode with Max Perkins, we Max has been, if you remember Max,
I
because
do indeed. Yeah.
was also, yeah, he was one of my classmates. He started working with digital mediums for his job, which is an animation, of course, because the way he works lends itself to that craft. Um, and there's I'm not quite sure why, but in I perceive in society in general, there's like this aspect of uh, we unavoidably compare things, and in comparing things, sometimes we might start to think that something is better than something else, or that because something came about as a result of the development of technology, that once that technology shows up, it um, immediately renders the previous thing that existed obsolete or something of the sort, rather than there's this feeling of competition between things, and the different ways of doing things. It's like, oh, why is this better than that? And if this aspect is better about this, then that means that it overall is better completely better as this other thing. And so I've been trying, among other things, to kind of shift that idea into remembering that each thing has its own pros and cons, kind of, like each thing can do something the other one cannot, and rather think of all the mediums as their own world, like preciousness, kind of, as you were mentioning. So like, and listening, your muse just now about um how they've kind of melded together, and there's not necessarily a difference between the two, and they're rather kind of they're both a conduit for just searching for or and studying
For
what
creativity.
you yeah, exactly, the work that we do. That is pretty refreshing. That's very refreshing to think of it that way, because I've fallen to that. um I have a bias for drawing. Just, I like drawing a lot. And I think I mentioned it before, that when an artist does both drawing and painting, I tend to favor the drawings. Um, but I think it's might be because of the bias that I have, and I'm like, oh yeah, like drawing's cool and whatever, like the whole thing. But yeah, that's very very refreshing. I really appreciate having that um, information added onto to like as part of the whole of how people feel about this. So okay, so this creative endeavor, I mean, you called it what we do. So what would you say we do?
Well, just to back up for a second, I really enjoyed the episode with Max, and I encourage everybody to watch it if they can. And I was particularly interested in what he said about, I think he said the additive versus the subtractive, or maybe I'm getting the terminology incorrect. It
Mm,
was with reference or with respect to the addition of mixing of colors in oil paint
mm,
versus adding more colors in kind of light mixing context on the computer screen,
mm.
and how one gets more and more muted and the other one gets more and more luminous. And I thought that was really great. And watching him be a true success with storyboarding and animation is a real mark of pride. Once again,
Yeah.
with you, and I love your drawings. But I guess what I'm really talking about is the human element. So when you take an industry like drawing or painting, and you bring it into your orbit and you start to really engage with it, you add a layer of complexity, which is just the byproduct of you engaging with it, because you have to personalize it. Everybody does that with a palette or with a set of brushes that they like, or a surface of a canvas that they prefer. And by making it more complicated, you drive into it a certain presence that really is like a shadow of yourself. It's reflective of your own, that aspect of the way you prefer to engage with visual phenomenon. And if you add to that the very definite uh, thing, the notion of taking something like drawing and saying, well, where would you place pastel in that? Is pastel drawing or is pastel painting?
Mm-hmm.
Or in drawing, how about pen and ink? Is pen and ink painting or is it drawing? And,
Watercolor.
or sort of dry brushing techniques in a kind of watercolor context or an oil context. And I think that, the fact that it can't be easily classified, either drawing or painting, makes it that much more fascinating
Mm.
and capable of a personal interpretation, um, with respect to the strength of one's technical facilities.
Okay, so what exactly what exactly do you mean? Because I wanted to ask you things about what you were just explaining. What exactly do you mean engaging with it? Do you mean the artist engaging with making while they're making their work, or like an observer looking at a work of art and like that engagement, like that contemplation, or what? Do you mean
Well, I
like
mean,
us when we make stuff?
yeah, sure. Good question. I'm not sure I answered your previous question, so if I didn't, feel free to pin me down on that. But
Okay.
so the way I see it, I'm reminded of, like growing up as a kid in Virginia, and my dad's got an oil set. He's got like Taub's copal painting medium, and he's got an oil set, and this is halftone color. This is dark color that you'd use, and this is light color that you'd use for this, that, and the other thing. And you almost never do things that way. When you pick up the oils, when you pick up the pencil, you start to sharpen it a different way, or you start to add a different component, which reflects the way that you wish to engage with visual phenomena. Always add your personal imprint on everything that you do, because nobody takes a can palette or even a regular canvas, at least nobody who's done it a little while, and just puts it up on the easel and goes at it. They have to take it through a phase of customization so that it
Mm-hmm.
becomes ready for their voice to imprint itself upon that surface, and it becomes an artifact. And I say again, that may sound a little weird, but these things that you leave behind, they're artifacts of your life. They're pieces of your life, and somebody may pick up a piece of your life, which has your personality and your creativity in it, and hold that dear, precious, or somehow covet that in their own lives later on.
Yeah.
And they may not. Those things may get lost. They may get destroyed. They may get forgotten. We have no way of knowing. So I think the only way that you can pursue matters is to feel, you know, um, enthused and driven, and pursue your own fulfillment in the act of creativity, to the best of your abilities, so that you're following a kind of protocol that's self-derived. You feel like this is necessary to express, no matter how many voices are out there to tell you that that's not either commercially viable, or
Mm.
that that's not creatively unique. You have to listen to that inner voice in both the material way, but also, and more importantly, in a creative capacity.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, the part that you were describing about when somebody gets the object upon which they're going to make stuff and they customize it after
Mhm.
a little while of, getting to know the materials and everything.
Mhm.
It kind of made me think, it kind of reminded me in a way of, like how the object has to be primed or prepared, however the artist wants to do it, before they can start engaging with it, like you were saying. Made me think of ritual. There's like a ritualistic aspect in a way in preparing the surface upon which one is going to work. Not, but also there's like kind of that ritual also gets one into the mental, like also primes one mentally to then be able to start to work. Um,
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's very interesting. And a ritual would be a byproduct of a learning culture,
mm,
as well as a person's own history. Student X enters the New York Academy or Studio Incaminati.
mm,
They bring a set of experiences with them that may affect in a positive way the learning culture, and add to a larger ritual, a more nuanced ritual. And that again is part of what you'd be doing in your own studio to prepare yourself to make a painting or to make a drawing. And I think those are very significant. I would say, wager to say, since we're always talking about like things to think about, if someone can factor into their own ritual the idea of preparedness. I'm talking mental preparedness, material preparedness, business preparedness. That would be a really good thing because it's a surprisingly short supply. And, just having your shit together is a lot in this day and age.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
Especially that business part.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I feel like all the stuff that we've been musing about or conversing about thus far kind of feels like kind of the getting ready and then getting ready to make the work and then making the work, like the act of arguably the act of making art effectively. I mean, I wonder, I guess, then what is, in your opinion, what is art?
Okay, it's a really great question, and it's a question because it's indefinable. It's worth asking. So you're never going to get a solid answer from anybody. But it's almost to say it as clearly as possible, which I wonder if I'm doing. The question is more important than the answer.
Okay.
It really is, because if there are some things that I think if you keep going back and re-asking, they gain somehow more depth, more integrity, because you're always moving closer to an answer. So you don't always need an answer, but if you're moving down the road toward an answer, it's like discovering yourself and then looking back at your life and realizing you were several different people according to the season in which you lived.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Trying to find the answer to that question makes the question legitimized. I have a quote here because I thought about this, when you brought this up to me, this opportunity to talk to you about these sorts of things. And I do think that some of the people that preceded us who were really brilliant are wonderful places to go to seek out answers. So this is what Martha Mayer Erlbacher said. She was my teacher. She said, quote, "Art is the greatest possible realization of our deepest fears, joys, and instincts as human beings." The greatest possible realization. So to me, what that does is it gets to that idea of the crest of the wave, that you're trying to target and pinpoint those parts of your life that you never want to forget. Like, the moment that your child was born, that is indelibly etched in your memory. And if you lose every memory you have, but 10 of them, that's one of the 10. And that's where you want to live in art. I think what art is really, practically, it's an industry built around the getaway, the breakaway moments from the obligations of life. So when people live their lives and they pay their bills and they do their jobs, there are moments in their lives when they say, I got to get away from this. I got to step back and do something that I'd love to do that would be really creative for me, that I know I need. And art is built around that. It's like the entertainment industry in a sense, because there are practical components to it, realities to it. There are ways of getting better at it. And in the process of improving in the ability to express the sheer fundamental technical portions, their voice comes through more and they get a better sense, and here's my word again, of fulfillment. And so art is a very fulfilling thing because, and it's weird, it's oxymoronic, because it's unnecessary, because it doesn't, it's not engineering and it's not medicine. So it's
unnecessary. You said it's unnecessary.
It's not a necessary thing for humanity in a practical sense. It's not. We're not building bridges. I used to say in jest almost to classes that, hey, we're not curing cancer. And then I had somebody in my class. This is a few years ago, and she told me that she was there with her husband. They were in class, and he was stage 4, and she said in so many words, this is saving his life. And I thought again about it. I went back and sort of fundamentally reconsidered it. And I should have, maybe I was just short-sighted, but by being unnecessary, it may be the most necessary thing because of its connection with this idea of really living to the fullest. Again, to pull a cliche in, but there is something there. There's an essence there that really makes you feel alive, that this is getting to, it's tapping into. And that's what makes it really valuable and undefinable. people talk about developing, the art of cooking, or, the performance of a tennis player to an art,
Yeah.
um, something to the effect where it becomes, there's a fluency there. And at the same time, there's an opportunity through that fluency to express something that's vital to you. It makes you feel right with the world. And I think that's what art is.
Okay. Yes, that's lovely for sure. And I do, yeah, the complexity and seeming uselessness, I guess, of art, um, I think is almost all the more reason for you, for what you were saying earlier, that it's like to continue to ask the question. Um, because I've been listening to, podcasts and lectures or whatever on the subject recently, and besides having the conversations with other people, um, and it seems like some of these people really, I mean, consider art art and artists, the people who make the work, who make art, objects of art, to have a very important mission. Um, the there's a clinical psychologist named Jordan Peterson who unfortunately he doesn't talk about art as often as I would like him to, so that he could elaborate more on the subject. But he talks about it in the personality trait aspect of the person who makes art, and where he puts artists together with the entrepreneurs in the sense that they go into the shitty looking parts of town and they see something in there and they make it into something else. And I mean, I'm pretty sure that it's happened more, at least more than once in New York, where it's like what was it, the part that used to be super shitty or something, and then the artists used to live there. What, the village in Manhattan and whatever, whatever, like that kind of, like I cannot think of the name of a place right now, but it's happened at least twice in New York throughout history, New York's more recent history, where like artists live in this area, and then they, by living there, do their art thing, and then the capitalists or whatever it is, then they move in there and then they gentrify everything, and then the artists can't afford to live there anymore, so like now that area is livable for regular, quote unquote, regular people. So like, according to this clinical psychologist, that is the more obvious thing that artists do, but they do something of the sort as well with the objects of art that they make.
Right.
um
Right.
yeah. So they he also describes it in the sense of going into the unknown and making it known for everyone else, or something like that, like
Yeah, I
he's
think I
yeah.
would agree with Peterson on that. Going into the unknown is being in some respects like an explorer,
Yes.
and in a contemplative presence, because what you're looking at, it reminds me of when I was a kid, and I think, I can't remember what my mom was watching, but I remember she was watching something. It was probably a movie, and she's crying, and I'm a kid. I'm like, if, if, if it's that sad, why are you watching it? And she's
Yeah.
like, because it's beautiful, and
Yeah. Yeah.
like, if there's something about the contemplative eye and its capacity to go and look at tragedy, like tragedy, and see the art within it, see the the the, the beautiful presence within that experience, and that's important, because there is something there. Call it redemptive, call it what you want, but I mean, you could almost take, because art's a really weird word, you could almost take that word and put human in, because that's the human side. I mean, we are human, we live on this planet, and we are all doomed. We're all going to go. So we're all going out the same way, no doubt about it, as far as I'm concerned. And it's a matter of taking what we can do as human beings, and I think finding a way, a manner of connecting, being alive. That's what art is.
Yes. Yes, that's yes. And I really feel like it connects or relates to um also kind of what Max was saying in the previous episode of this show, that in his opinion, it's a search and an exploration effectively, and I mean that's what art is, and it really, I'm enjoying the connection of that with what you're saying, and just like the conversation in general that we're having, and I just think it's cool that it's, I don't know, there it has like those it has those points in common, because effectively, um when I'm drawing, I kind of think of the, like, it doesn't matter if it's like a finished drawing or drawing from life or sketching or whatever it is. um in all occasions, I'm definitely looking for something, and studying at the same time, which is also looking for something. That's kind of also how I think of what we do, drawing, as studying. And in the study, I mean, what are you looking for when you're studying? You're looking for knowledge. You're trying to know something better through that search and through that study. Um, so yeah, I enjoy that convergence there a lot. So
Yeah, we just had a panel here in Caminati about the subject was the demonstration, about this thing being made in front of an audience, and this artifact having a very limited lifespan. And part of the nature of it is that it's ephemeral, and it begins and ends in front of a crowd, and there's dialogue involved. And it was an interesting conversation. But then I got to thinking after the fact that that's also very similar with a work of art. It has a lifespan, and it's done by a living person, and it's done within a finite time frame, and it involves a particular place in your life. And when you are building it, you're building an image, and that's a phrase I'm borrowing from Max. I like what he said about building an image, but it leads to something else, which is another observation from a different conversation with Mario Robinson, great artist. And he said recently, when we had an event here, that his figures are familiar only to him and anonymous to everyone else. His subject matter, like he's painting his grandmother, and he knows her well, he loves her, and nobody else knows her. I mean, maybe a few people know her, but then we got to talking about the fact that one day, he's going to be gone, and she exists through the life of an image. She becomes, it's like any painting. You go in a museum and you see that painting or that drawing, and you start to kind of visually interpret and try to find a familiarity with the person, but your entire engagement goes through the threshold of the image, the way the image is constructed. And that's just totally fascinating, because you could get the person wrong. It's like there was a show a few years ago of Murillo at Frick, and he had done a painting, Sepulveda or something, I think his name was. And this guy, it was a beautiful painting, but this guy was burning people at the stake. He was one of those people for searching out witchcraft, and this was a really terrible person.
The artist?
No, not the artist. No,
the person he was painting.
The person he was painting.
Yeah.
And so what I'm getting at is there's so much mystery in who we're actually getting to.
Yes.
Who we know, who we think we know, who we don't know at all, who we project onto. And the image is the context, because of anonymity and because just, things go out of circulation. I mean, all those people that we know of as portraits, pretty much all of them, I guess, people used to know them, and they used to know what they were really like and what they were really about. And nobody knows that anymore. I mean, there are probably certain accounts which may or may not be interpreted in literature and writing and journals and stuff. But I just love the way that an image imprints a presence on a person. or a piece of artwork that is, it's like another voice is in there, and the
Yes.
voice is that of the artist.
Yes. There's really that's yeah, that's a it's the finalized work of art, whatever it might be, the drawing, painting, or sculpture, or whatever it is, it's like physical evidence of this whole bunch of stuff, because it's like what the other artist was saying, that he was drawing his grandmother, and there's like that intimate relationship between the two individuals that are involved in the making of this work. But then I think there's also the intimate relationship of the artist with the work itself while the artist is making the work. um or at least that's something about the way that I feel when I'm making the work. I get little crushes on my work or something, on like the drawings that I'm making, and then it just feels very intimate. And I don't know if it's because I'm physically close to them, because I like to work very closely to make details of things. And I don't know if it's like it's probably in part like the physical proximity, but also like the amount of time that I'm spending making the object. And then the only clue, I guess, left of that entire process is the work itself. And then whoever views the work afterwards, be it while the artist is alive, or whoever is involved in making the work is alive, or afterwards, it's like the only clue anyone has left of that entire story is the work of art. Like, that's a clue. And so, like, then, like you were saying, like, whatever is, um I don't know, the viewers, whomever they are, try to interpret the circumstances under which that work of art became solidified. And it's like really cool and kind of funny in a way, that it's like, it's really, you're not going to figure out how Leonardo did that thing. You're not gonna, I mean, you're not actually gonna, because you were not there physically.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
totally.
it's yeah, I don't know, it like, I feel like it brings the aspect that we were talking about earlier, about the search and the exploration, to the contemplation of art as well. Because it's like the viewer, somebody that maybe is not an artist, or doesn't consider themselves an artist, or just isn't an artist, whatever. They're looking at the work, and then they're doing their own search upon looking at the work. And that contemplation of, I wonder what the artist is trying to convey, or I wonder how the artist did that, or I wonder what is the reason for the artist to have made this image in this specific way, or I wonder how they got this shape. These kinds of questions, like, those are also searching questions, because then the viewer is performing their own search, their own exploration, and kind of, based on the what we were saying earlier, that in a way that is at least a participation in art, if not making art necessarily. Like, maybe it's not art that leaves physical evidence behind, like a drawing or a painting, but it's still maybe a little bit art in a way, kind
Yeah,
of.
yeah, sure. And the image that's created by an artist of a person is filled with interpretation. And it's interpretation of that person in their personality, in their accomplishments, in their legacy, in the notion of what they represent. I'm thinking about like a statue by a sculptor, and it would be about the person, but it would also be about valor, for example.
Mm.
And there would be almost a certain kind of commentary, um, you know, op-ed or something on the person, and on and what's going on. So I think that's what one of the things that makes self-portrait so interesting, is because those two things align in some respect. You've got a person that's really presumably trying to understand their place in life and the meaning of life, and they are both the sitter and the artist, and they're probably also projecting, they're probably also questioning, but the process is entirely self-revelatory. And when the public engages with that, they have a unique insight into the artist. I mean, self-portraits are just totally fascinating. You see, people that are projecting in and of themselves in an outward appearance of what they would like to be. And you see other people that are kind of, disassembling themselves in front of your very eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I think that notion of of a strong hand in the construction of the image is something that we don't always appreciate, because we kind of take a lot of imagery at, literally at superficial face value, and go to the person and what the artist was trying to say. But sometimes the artist is caught up in the struggle in so many different levels in their own life, financially, mentally, spiritually, technically, and those would affect the image.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I wanted to kind of reference back to something. Oh, what you were saying earlier about how art seems to be useless, and it reminded me of Oscar Wilde's own quote about what is the purpose of art, and I don't remember the entire quote. It's not just art is essentially useless or something. It's a longer quote than that, but the part that stuck is art is useless. Um, and I don't know. I think so far, based on our conversation, it really kind of sounds very important and useful rather than useless. Except that it's not finding its purpose necessarily, or even what it is. It's just not as straightforward as an engineer building a bridge. Like the practicality or any usefulness is not necessarily obvious. It has to be deduced by, I don't know, whomever. Um, and I don't know, I feel like that mystery about art, about what it is and what its purpose is, I think because it's so difficult and in murky waters, or just, it's not easy to divine what the answer to these questions are. I think that is, I don't know, that is why, like that mystery about art, I think that is why um, it probably is even more important to try to figure it out. And like you were saying also earlier, to continue to ask the question repeatedly and try to think about the the answer to that. Um, I also recently, but before I started having, before I had the bright idea of talking to other people about it, I was trying to read about the subject as well, like about art and beauty. And I also stumbled upon another guy uh, named Roger Scruton, and he was an architect. I mentioned him also when I talked to Max, because through him, I mean, sometimes people word things in a way that some people understand and some people don't understand, and I understood what he was talking about. Likewise with Jordan Peterson, I understand what he's talking about, even though he's talking about apparently deep stuff. And so Roger Scruton, he talks about beauty and art in this very reverential sort of way, very respectful and everything. And I personally don't feel like that is necessarily present, or I didn't, I don't know, maybe I'm too dense or something, I don't know, I didn't pick that up from other people, like before I went to the academy, or I don't know, I feel like the conversation about the subject of art and beauty is kind of, it has other subjects in there that make it even more difficult, like, oh, anything can be art, or anyone is an artist, or anything. But then this other person, Roger Scruton, talking about beauty as a value that is worth pursuing, similarly to pursuing a life of virtue, or trying to be making yourself better and all of this stuff. He kind of, or from what I understand so far, he kind of talks about beauty and art in, he talks about beauty in that way, that it's something that you can pursue and appreciate and all of this stuff, and that art is kind of one of the ways, or it's the way in which you search for beauty, or by trying to make beautiful things. So um it's a long question there, but to get to this question, but I wonder then, what is, in your opinion, beauty?
Let me again back up for a second, because I've got a quote for you right here. It's from Ovid. Nothing is more useful to humanity than those arts which have no utility. I'll say it again. Nothing is more useful to humanity than those arts which have no utility. So to me, to interpret that, to pull it to pull it into practical context. So we went to Central Park fairly recently with the family, and I'm going to expose myself for being a complete idiot in this sense, but my wallet got lifted, right?
Oh no.
And I've been, semi pissed ever since, not because, $50 got taken, but because they got my pictures of my kids, and there's a value there. There's an importance that's beyond the utilitarian, that's beyond the monetary. And that's really what we're talking about. There's something of great, I don't know, spiritual importance, not religious importance, but the importance of the spirit, that which connects you in a meaningful way with being alive and looking back at a legacy, just your own experiences, and looking ahead in a positive way to further experiences. And I think that's where the idea of art, to use the word, I wish we had a better word, that's where it thrives, is in that place where its value and its importance is placed beyond the normative. So beauty is another great question, another really hard question to answer. I've got a quote for you here, and it's from Oliver Wendell Holmes. He says, quote, "Art is that which pulls the trigger of a suppressed emotion." And I look at that and I think maybe you could have used more appropriately beauty. Beauty is that which pulls the trigger of a suppressed emotion. So there's something in the beautiful, and when I say that, I mean beautiful with a capital B, that pulls that trigger into art, that brings you into the experience of rapture with creativity, with your connection to creativity, and with your connection to the fulfillment of creativity. Because there's something in this kind of feeling right with the world, because we always run out of words to describe it, but it's in a sense a kind of spiritual fulfillment, and beauty is the trigger mechanism for that. There's something about just how ethereal it is, and continually inspiring, and endlessly fascinating to pursue, where beauty takes on a much more profound capacity than it would be as you encounter the beauty industry and you walk into the drugstore and all that stuff. The beautiful is almost like a transcendental visual aspect, or term, or what's the right word, phenomenon maybe is a better way to put it, because of where it's taking you, and because it's part of this kind of response that you're getting when you are creating something. You're in search of the beautiful. The beautiful could be, to the bystander, the ugliest phenomenon they've ever seen, but the way it communicates to you, the way that it connects to you in a creative capacity is deeply moving, and it's like momentum affirming in the piece that you're developing. It sustains your creativity, the search for beauty with a capital B.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, that makes me think of the same two guys that I was just talking about, because and I mean, I don't entirely understand the connection, or I haven't been able to kind of rephrase it with my own words to try to understand it better, but they both talk about beauty, and then I mean, they definitely talk about the purpose, or the purpose of art as something to do with the divine. And they've also used the term transcendental, which again, unfortunately, I mean, I don't feel like they go into it enough to explain it more, so that then I can understand a little bit better what they're talking about. But um, there's really something about feeling a certain thing when when one witnesses something important, or when one sees something beautiful, or whatever it is, like that sensation within feels very important, very deep, and very meaningful. And That's a thought I've had recently. And I mentioned it in the previous episode before Max's, which was in Spanish, but that about how, because they, similarly to also what you just said, that beauty is allegedly in the eye of the beholder, but I feel like there must be something, or I have a feeling, something tells me that there must be something that is most definitely considered beautiful cross individuals, cross culture, cross time, cross everything. Like I feel like there might be a constant somehow in there somewhere, and it occurred to me recently that maybe it's that feeling elicited by something that is, that which you feel when you see something beautiful, or you feel or you're moved by something. um
Yeah, yeah,
I
I
kind of
agree.
yeah, I'm kind of inclined to think of that as, or at least I wonder if that maybe that is the beauty that we're trying to understand or define. And it's funny also both about art and beauty, because that's something else that uh I think that's kind of like the path to make the connection with the divine. Jordan Peterson talks about how I'm not going to remember the religion now. I think it was the ancient Hebrews. Like they were not allowed to say the name of God, or something. I don't remember what group of people it was now, but they were not allowed to say the name, because naming whatever it was somehow removes the status of divinity.
Mhm.
So then maybe the fact that there's no specific definition of what art is, what its purpose is, what beauty is, what its purpose is. Maybe that is, the fact that it can't be named or defined is precisely what gives it this divinity, like this aspect of divinity that it can't, even if you try to search for it, you can't find the term
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
for it.
totally. So I brought up this quote before. This is from Woodbury, where he says, "Art is psychology, not science. And there must ever be one unknown factor, the personal equation. You must know what you see, why you see, and what is worth seeing." And so, to that phrase, what is worth seeing, to take the word worth, maybe what makes art so different and interesting is where its value is placed more in the kind of spiritual realm, where you have a sentimental value, and that changes its nature. It's not so much a monetary thing. That's why you hear, maybe that's one of the reasons why you hear artists, just kind of bemoan the idea of everything being uh, put in a monetary value
Mm-hmm.
sense, and how foreign that is to the creative kind of evolution of a piece. I've got something else from Clint Brown, artist to artist, where he's talking about uh, Lucian Freud on Francis Bacon. Quote: "His work impressed me. His personality affected me. He talked a great deal about the paint itself, carving the form and imbuing the paint with this sort of life. The idea of paint having that power. So, when it has that power to transmogrify or transform itself, to channel a sense of life, it takes on that sentimental or spiritual value,
Mm-hmm.
which delivers it to a different realm. And, God willing, if the image falls into the patrimony of humanity, it gets cherished long after we leave, and becomes a different thing. And it's kind of like the search for immortality, right? Where your
Yeah.
piece will outlive you, and it will be cherished. And in that sense, your name will be remembered if that's what you seek. But I really think those two ideas they're similar, but I almost want to put the beauty into the why category
Mm,
and the art into the what category.
yes. Um, the the more, not that I've been talking about the subject for really that long, because I almost avoided it for a really long time. Um, but the more I've been talking about the subject and trying to learn about the subject about both art and beauty and these two things, the more it really makes me question, or you know, makes me wonder at the very least about uh, like the the Dadaist type stuff and the ready-made type stuff and Marcel Duchamp's urinal and this type of stuff that I understand why it came about, but I feel as though everything that's kind of derived from that type of stuff that they're just trying to copy over and over again, the feeling that Duchamp elicited with like that shock, you know. I guess I just feel like for a while now, not that long, just not very long, thankfully. Art has been equated with that need to shock and replace the contemplation and the search for beauty with this shock, kind of like a reality show almost. The way a reality show kind of shocks you. And I mean that that's I don't know, I guess in the reverence, for example, that you talk about art and beauty and the respect really puts in I mean for me it puts into question the what might the intentions be of the people who make that kind of other work that is not in my it's that's my opinion, of course, like I'm not um anyway, it's my opinion. I guess I just wonder what their intentions might be, if there's any of that thought beyond just wanting to shock.
So I would propose a third question for you on this, your fourth podcast,
Mm-hmm.
which would be, what is success to you?
Success?
Yeah, what is success?
Okay.
What is it? Ask each person, what is success? I'd like to know too, because success is, for me, it's a sense of fulfillment that goes to the core of why I'm here and why I'm doing what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And that can only come from within. It can only come from the core of who and what you're all about. And I've got a number of quotes for you. The first one just sticks with me, and it's from the Steve Jobs commencement address at
Yes.
Stanford, I think,
Mm-hmm.
where he says, "Don't waste your life living someone else's dream." It's just a really great, like, I think artists need to hear that a lot,
Yes.
maybe, because if it only comes from within, it can't come from without. And if fulfillment or success, whichever word you want to use, is about shock, then you'll shock. If it's about creating works, which, if in my case, I'm just ceaselessly fascinated with the mannerisms of the technical engagement and how to find, a broader voice and a more profound cadence through that. And so I really enjoy education. I really enjoy the idea of drawing and painting. I love the kind of legacy of the academic drawing, which is a terrible phrase because of all these associations, with
It's
art, with
loaded.
beauty, with the academy, all this
Yeah.
stuff. But there's something about the figure drawing, or the academy, as it's called sometimes, as it passes through generations and through centuries,
Mm-hmm.
which is just inexhaustibly fascinating. And I love that. So I really enjoy that. I stay connected with that because for me, I find it fulfilling. I find it really fascinating to explore education in eras and epochs of ideas and evolving theories and devolving theories about education. And if someone wants to take that in shock, then I'm a live and let live kind of
Mm-hmm.
person.
Yeah.
Far be it from me to tell somebody else what really moves them.
Yeah.
And so I would say that I found another interesting couple of things here. This is what Oscar Wilde said to James Whistler, 1885. He says, quote, "Be warned in time, James, and remain, as I do, incomprehensible. To be great is to be misunderstood." So I think sometimes there's an urge within to be accepted and to be understood. And it's a very difficult thing. To follow your instincts sometimes is not to really understand your instincts.
Mhm.
And but they're compelling because they're part of what really makes you tick deep down. And you've got to listen to that inner voice, as I said earlier today, and find fulfillment through the exploration of that self-revelatory practice to try to understand yourself a little bit more and articulate the mystery. The visual articulation of that internal, that invisible mystery is part of what we do. And so I like this idea of being misunderstood because I don't think that I don't speak for artists. I just speak for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be understood. I guess I'm not trying to be comprehensible. I suppose I'm not very comprehensible, but I do know that this is a very solitary practice, and I do know that it's helped me to take on the idea of what is success, because it's a different thing for each person.
Yeah.
I remember going and visiting an artist years ago when I was in residency, and I won't say who it was, but you could have landed a Cessna in this artist's studio. I mean, big giant paintings and retrospectives, museums, just a miserable person though. And, and people would have killed for that. Is that success? Is the retrospective at the museum and, name your city really going to make you happy? What's going to make you fulfilled? What's going to make you look back at what you did and feel like, wow, that really did it for me. That was more meaningful to me than just about anything I could have done as an alternative.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a really really good point, because for sure, that's definitely another thing that I have been discovering, and that is meaning and fulfillment. Because and that's probably really what might define, or might be at least very important when looking at another person's work, especially if it's something like I was saying that, for me it's like, yeah. And then maybe if that person, if that work, whatever they're doing, was meaningful for them and important for them in whatever it might be, if it's a meaningful research, a meaningful search, a meaningful exploration, and then that work of art is the result of that search and that exploration and asking those questions, or whatever they're asking, like what is art, what is beauty, or whatever they're searching for, and that work of art is the result of that, then that is definitely very important as well. And definitely the aspect of meaning with the search for success as well. I absolutely agree that each individual, like, or artist, or whatever thing in life you're doing, a person is doing, it's important to define or to think what would be success to that person, because like you just said about that artist, he had what is generally considered a successful artist career, where he was in museums and stuff, and he had a gigantic studio, big paintings and all these things, but he just hated everything, and he was hateful himself. He was bitter, resentful, whatever. And maybe he didn't think about what he actually wants, and maybe he went for whatever he thought other people thought he must do. And it's like, and for me personally, like the experience with that, and I'm aware that we're up to the hour now. I don't know, a year and a half ago or something, a gallery offered me a solo show, and I was like, yes, of course I want a solo show and stuff, because it's like, oh my god, a gallery wants my work and all this stuff, and it's like, we have the thought that that is part of the success of an artist, to get a solo show, but then it ended up not happening, and then I was like, I mean, while I was talking about it with the gallery, I was like, I kind of don't really want that. I'm not only that, but I'm kind of not ready for it. I don't want to commit to that right now. I just want to draw whatever I want and just I don't even necessarily want the drawings to be cohesive as a exploring a subject matter. I just want to draw this thing, and I want to draw the other thing, and I want to study this thing, and I want to play with this thing, and so like that's what I want to do.
Mhm.
So then realizing that when this happened I was like, that's I don't know, it seemed very important. It's I think it's important, an important realization in general for an individual to think what is important and meaningful to them, to because it's not the same for everyone necessarily.
Yeah, totally. And then you get into art school situations and you get filled with all these external ideas, and you just
Yeah.
have to take the requisite time to digest those ideas and figure out, that old saying, be true to thine own self, and what really connects with you and is going to make you feel happy or fulfilled. Again, there's another sort of different kind of word there, happy. We're
Mm.
talking about feeling right with things, and uh, being in a place where your creativity aligns with all those factors in life that you want to operate within and without. And I
Yeah.
think it's a really key thing. I have another quote or two for you if you don't mind.
No, go ahead. These are great.
Yeah, I've got one from Uglo. He says, quote, "I'm painting an idea and not an ideal," which is interesting. Basically, I'm trying to paint a structured painting full of controlled and therefore potent emotion. So love that word about emotion, potent emotion in a controlled setting.
Hmm.
And to me, it goes right back to that listening to the inner voice and the human imprint on artifacts factor that we've been talking about today, that you're going for something that's more meaningful to you. And this must be why you delayed the solo exhibition, because you need to figure out what you really want to do with your life. And
Mm.
you got this power of drawing and draftsmanship and uh, handling and this insight, and that's not always the thing that aligns perfectly well with the commercial side of the art business. It sometimes does not, sometimes does,
Mm.
but one has to be more prioritized than the other,
Yeah.
and we both know which one we need to prioritize for ourselves, right?
Yes. All right. I think that is a good place to end this excellent conversation. Although I have to say, similarly with Max, there's other stuff that I'd like to talk about in the future, in a possible future episode of this very podcast, not podcast, with you, like the teaching aspect that you were talking about earlier as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that might have to be a future episode because it's effectively been just over an hour. So why don't you let anybody that's listening where they can find your work?
Oh, just search me out wherever. Dan Thompson, danthompsonart.com is my website. Dan Thompson Art is the Instagram account. And there apparently is another Dan Thompson who was a dragon artist or a fantasy artist. So that
Yeah.
wouldn't be me, FYI. If the other Dan Thompson's out there, cheers.
Yeah.
So, one final quote from George Bernard Shaw. He says, "Life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself." And I think that is part of what we're getting at today, which is expression is one thing, but kind of trying to figure out who and what you're about, creating yourself throughout your entire creative life is it's really the search for understanding, search for meaning. So yeah, it's been a great time talking to you, and
Yeah.
these are always cool discussions. I hope that everybody's enjoyed it, and keep listening to Gabriela Handal, and come take her class at Studio Incaminati and elsewhere.
Oh
We're
yeah.
teaching a class in Spanish right now to our students, which we are very excited about.
Yes.
It's going great, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. All right. Well, Dan, thank you so very much for your time and for talking to me. And well, thank you everyone for listening. And I'm going to cut off this
Thank you so
recording
much,
real
Gabrielle.
quick.
God bless.
Yes, of course.